Hey guys, you're in for a real treat today. I'm going to be talking about Andrew Hoy's book called The House of El Shaddai. And this book had a pretty big impact on me. It totally shaped or reimagined the tabernacle in my mind. And I think anybody who reads this book, it's going to do the same. It will get you to the place where you believe that this is what the tabernacle actually looked like instead of that rectangular model that's been diagrammed in the backs of our Bibles. So I don't have enough good to say about this book. I just hope I can do Andrew Hoy justice. And I actually have the hardcover. I'm proud of that. This is a book that you will find either on his website. You can get it on Amazon. The House of El Shaddai, God's Dwelling Place Reconsidered. And that's what it is about. He is getting his readers to reconsider what the tabernacle actually looked like. And if you can see on the cover, it has kind of a transparent of his design. And I don't want to say his design. He wouldn't want you to say his design. He would want you to say the Exodus design, or the design that was given to Moses. And then the rectangular model, I can't do it with a mirror. Anyway, there's the rectangular model. So he's showing you a size comparison there on the cover. Anyway, The House of El Shaddai by Andrew L. Hoy, God's Dwelling Place Reconsidered. It's about if you get the soft cover, it's about an 8 inches by 11 inches. It's a good sized book. It is a very colorful book. He takes a lot of care on the inside, formatting, structuring, organizing. Takes a lot of care with this book. It's something you could use for homeschooling, to teach your children about the tabernacle, and which is something that my wife and I have been, this e-learning has really got us to a place, this pandemic and having our kids home, it's just gotten us to a place where we think, we just want to go full, just totally homeschool ourselves. If we can do it, if you can homeschool with the curriculum that the school is giving you, and it's just so overwhelming, then you can do it at home yourselves. And this would be a good place, a good topic, a good subject to show your children. So whether or not it's homeschool related, it's a good book to teach your children nonetheless. And I'll get back to that, because I'll try to read a few excerpts from it before the end of this review. So one thing I wanted to do was to pull up his website. He has a website called Project 314, and this was the first thing that I visited, was his website. Project 314, Tabernacle Research and Restoration. And he talks about this. Now, his website has changed a lot since I last visited the website. And when I was writing Crushing Conceptualism, I have not been to the website since. So I'm not even sure how to navigate now, or where everything is. Some of the things that I included, I wanted to add something about this in Crushing Conceptualism, just because the purpose of my book is to turn my readers on to new information, introduce them to some of the authors that have impacted me, And I actually reached out to the author, Andrew Hoy, and we established a relationship about a year and a half ago. We communicated back and forth, and I'm so glad I did. He gave me permission. I think he was a little hesitant, I think, to give me permission in adding some information in my book, just because I think it's because this topic has been associated with cosmology, and I think because Rob Stiba, in his presentations, he always brings this up when it's time to talk about the firmament. And that's actually how I came to learn about the tabernacle, was because of Rob Skiba, because he was likening this to the firmament, like a miniature model of the earth. And so that's where I wanted to bring up this subject when I was writing about the firmament in my book, and just to say, oh, this is kind of interesting too, which is kind of how Rob does it. But in communication with Andrew, he wanted to make it very clear that this is an independent study aside from cosmology. So, and I think that's important too, that people do know that it doesn't have anything to do with cosmology. It just happens to be where a lot of people have heard about this, just because of Rob's impact on a lot of different people. So, having said that, I did gain permission from Andrew to add some about his work in crushing conceptualism. Matter of fact, I'll show you real quick. I had it ready to do this anyway. What I ended up doing was making an appendix A, where I basically took from his website and, just kind of an introductory thing. But I want to read something real quick from his other website. I don't know where it is on his new website because I have not been through it. But this is one of the excerpts that I pulled from his older website. Andrew Hoy says, regardless of culture or creed, nobody reasonable would reject simple design objectives that have been applied to tent making throughout the world. Excuse me. I just needed a drink of coffee. As mobile structures, tents need to be lightweight to be transported, and as a result, a tent maker's goal is to figure out a way to span a flexible covering over the simplest of frames while employing the fewest parts. Unnecessary weight and bulk are contrary to the very lifestyle and perhaps in some cases the very survival of nomadic people. And that's a good point, because in his book he talks about a lot of the unnecessary bulky, the silver that was that they use in that rectangular model that are required to act as like bases for the posts, the upright posts. And it's like, we're talking about a lot of extra unnecessary weight for no reason, just to make it work, just to make the popular model work. And I might talk about that here in a minute. But let me finish this. He says, recognizing these simple and irrefutable principles, I re-examined the Exodus tents that describe the tabernacle hardware and courtyard by taking the same parts listed in the Hebrew Bible, and that's important, the same parts. He's very careful to not use extra material, and he emphasizes that all of the extra materials needed to make the other one work. And that's something that I had heard that he talked about, but he does a really good job of explaining why and where different elements would have been allocated or what they'd have been used for, like what does he call them in the book? Instead of using some silver for this, they would have been pins, or he has a word for them. Now I can't think of it. I'll tell you in a minute. I'm going to open up that book and show you some things on the inside. Anyway, instead of arriving at a bizarre rectangular structure, unfamiliar to nomadic people, I discovered a tint of grandeur that is majestically conveyed in Bible texts. Okay. So I thought that was good. And again, his website, I wish I would have gotten a little more familiar with it before I decided to do a book review, but you can get on project314.org and just navigate around and look at the different things that he offers. He even has a model. Boy, that would be neat to have. I really would. Okay. His website is impressive. There he is, Andrew Hoy. Cool guy. And I spoke with him on the phone when I was in the process of trying to get permission to use his website and the book. I wanted to add it. So I had the pleasure of speaking with him over the phone one night. We ended up talking for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And he kind of wanted to get an idea of where I was at in my theology. We had a lot in common. And now that I look back, that was about a year and a half ago. I remember some of the things that he was talking about and where he was at and understanding. I think he is going to come in this book. He has another book called Eat Like Jesus. I'm going to do a book review on it as well. Let me get this screen back up. Here's another one. I'm going through this again right now. When I tried going through it last year, I don't think I was ready for it yet. Just theologically where I was at, and different things speak to you at different times. But now I'm just soaking it up. It's a good book too. Anyway, the House of El Shaddai. That's what we're here about. God's Dwelling Place. This goes for $45 on Amazon. You can get it on his website. You can order it through that. This is the soft cover. Now, I have the hardcover, like I said, and it is $55. Now, luckily, the book was gifted to me. My parents bought it for me. And so that was a score right there. It's well worth it. I would have spent the money on this. Now, I don't like expensive books. And, I like seeing it like, here's Eat Like Jesus for $15. That's actually a great deal for the information you're getting in this book. It's about 155 pages or so, $14.95. But just like the House of El Shaddai, you're getting a lot of information. It's like concentrated information, all jam-packed into a small book of about 150 pages, like Jesus. And the same goes for this, the House of El Shaddai. There's so many details in this book. He was so careful to allocate materials and quantities, things like that, and to know what to do with them. He's a smart guy. He's an engineer. And he also knows Hebrew. I don't know how fluent he is, but I know that he can understand or know how to use the Hebrew. He knows different uses of the different words. And I try to do word studies and things like that. I want to know if a word can be used differently. Now, here that comes into play quite a bit when he starts talking about how Man, I wish I would have written down the examples. But when he was, talking about, well, we shouldn't think of it like this because that word actually could refer to when he was talking about the hangings, or now I can't remember. But it was so good. Let me flip through here, see if there's a few things that I could. This is one I wanted to say. You know how when you start talking about different ideas in Christianity, and these mainstream views, you'll either get two responses. It's usually two responses that I have heard in my life. Like, for instance, when I came out of a Oneness Pentecostal church where they teach that Jesus is the name of God and Jesus himself is the incarnation of the Father. So it's some weird theology there. They basically strip the Son of his own identity and say that the Son is not actually a true, real descendant of the Father. He is the Father himself incarnated, and when he was incarnated, he became the Son. You run into a lot of problems there. Like, what about the prayers of Christ? Anyways, when I started challenging them about their theology, they got mad. They're like, oh no, cognitive dissonance. That was one response, and that's a common response. Another response that you might get, like maybe if you talk about cosmology or something, or the Nephilim, or something like that. This is another response. They'll say, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have anything to do with salvation. Okay? So one thing towards the beginning of Andrew Hoy's book was that he was talking about the people, the type of people who say that it doesn't really matter. What does this have? What benefit is this? Why do we have to even discuss? Now, here's the problem. If people are challenged in their beliefs, they get so defensive. And, I've seen it so many times in studying the things that I study. But here's what he has to say about that. This is good, because I thought this was really good. He says, to say that the size and the shape of God's house do not really matter is clearly a sentiment rooted in ignorance or perhaps arrogance. Moreover, it is equally absurd to assert that the size and shape of God's house never did matter. That's the thing. If people are saying it doesn't really matter, then it never did matter. And I mean, that's a pretty bold statement. I mean, I wouldn't want to be found guilty of saying something doesn't matter that has to do with the Bible or growing and learning, things like that, And then he concludes that paragraph by saying, to undermine the details pertaining to God's house is to deny or discount the possibility that the ancient tabernacle dwelling place was actually a house in God's image. So that's the problem. I mean, that's why it's a big deal to say something doesn't matter. We are saying something about God that God designed doesn't matter, So whether it's, this subject or any other subject, but I thought he did very well. His introduction to this is very well. Preface, getting his readers, he does a good job before he actually starts talking about the design, to bring up a lot of good points like that. And here he says, while some aspects and elements of God's living word are bound to survive the translation process, readers should not assume a sense of entitlement, thinking that God has or is somehow obligated to perfectly preserve his word in their own native tongue. And I think he was talking about how a lot of, it's not going to be spelled out. A lot of people want things to be spelled out the way they want it to be spelled out. And if you can't show someone in the Bible something that is spelled out the way they want it to hear it, then they'll reject it. But that was a good, man, it's just filled with so much obscured by tradition. Let me turn this around and show you how much care he actually takes in formatting, structuring each paragraph. I mean, this is an impressive book. It is well worth the $45 soft cover, $55 for the hardcover. And like I said, I don't like expensive books, but I would have bought this book if it was not gifted to me, because it is worth that money. It is a quality work. This was good. When he was talking about the people that God chose. The Israelites could not build using a trial and error approach. I'm going to revisit this book and read through that all again. Anyway, he says here, thus, if Israel is not perceived to be a skilled labor force, being literate, educated, masters of engineering and ancient technology, and capable of autonomously planning projects, depictions of the tabernacle work are bound to remain desperately lacking. We have to understand how skilled they were in their crafts. There were so many different people involved that, I mean, we don't even know their names, you know. I mean, the Bible lists their names. We have the names in the Bible, but what I'm saying is that so many people just don't, like, you wouldn't know who this person was or that person. Now, I even have a name in my mind that's on the tip of my tongue that I can't remember, who was chosen for the ark, crafting the ark. But that's a problem. We should know that. We should know these people, their names, and how skilled they were. I wish I could go through the whole thing bit by bit. Now, he does a good job of using these quality control post-its in his book. For instance, and this is the reason that I said this would be a good resource for teaching children. The diagrams, the illustrations are great, and he has rejected post-it, rejected quality control, rejected. He'll tell you why it doesn't work. Then he will show you what, according to the text, what needs to happen for it to be reworked, remeasured, materials reallocated, and then the quality control approved. Okay? So it's very impressive what he has done. He's taken a lot of time. He didn't just try to spit out a book as fast as he could. He took time, and a lot of thought went into this. You can tell. Here's a simple statement that rings true. He says, while some believe truth to be a product of consensus, history has shown repeatedly that fact is not a byproduct of popular opinion. If the Exodus tabernacle is depicted contrary to how Exodus actually describes the tabernacle, then the entire exercise of depicting the tabernacle ultimately becomes an act of sacrilege or blasphemy. And down there he says, no wood whatsoever can be found in the entire Exodus 27 courtyard description. This material substitution is a matter of illiteracy or outright carelessness, especially as copper or brass is the post material of record, according to verse 10 and 11. What I tried to do is underline a lot of the different specific things that he was talking about. And one thing he says here was how careless a lot of people are when they use in this design that we see, the rectangle. And he does very well to show how careless people were with the materials, the measurements. But ultimately, you're getting a quality product. It's one of those books where you will need to set aside some time, quiet time, and go through. It takes some concentration. You need to focus on what you're reading to understand it. You can't just flip through it. I mean, the pictures help. If you could do that, I guess, just go by the quality control. But because it'll give you a good visual. You do need that when you read through. But the measurements, the numbers that he uses, I'll admit it was hard for me to follow unless I slowed down and really tried to understand what he was talking about. Then it all comes together. And I posted something about this on Facebook last month as I was reading towards the end of it. And a friend of mine commented, and he said, this is the model of the tabernacle, how it is supposed to be, how we should have. Like what he was saying was that, I'm the same. I have no doubt in my mind that this is the design of the tabernacle. And people were just careless throughout time, just coming up with something that didn't work. It wouldn't have, that square rectangle, that wouldn't have withstood the weather conditions. Things like that just don't make sense. People were not thinking when they designed that, when they came up with that image in their mind. It just makes absolutely no sense. Okay, I think I'm coming to a good stopping place. I don't know if I have done him justice. I know I haven't. Check out his website. There it is, project314.org. The book is $45 for the soft cover, $55 for the hardcover. It is well worth the money. You're getting quality, and that's important. Oh, this is the back of the book. Okay, that's what I added in Appendix A in Crushing Conceptualism. Anyway, there it is. I hope you get his book and learn about the tabernacle, the true tabernacle, and maybe shift around some of that preconceived, some of the traditional teachings that you've had. And that's, we're all working towards perfection, and this is a key piece. And, I think now going forward, when I read through the Bible, I'm going to take a little more time and try to understand what's going on, because going through the Bible before, it was boring. I'll be honest. When I got to the tabernacle, I'm thinking of that rectangular picture that, we growing up in church, when they got to the tabernacle here or there, it lost my interest. It was, but this brings a love for wanting to understand the tabernacle. All right, brothers and sisters, that is it for this video. Give it a like or share it with somebody. Leave me some comments. But more importantly, go check out the book. Go check out his website. Order a copy. And I'll talk at you next time.